Hi everyone, uh, welcome back. This is Romit from Epicenter AI, and in this video we will start off with the overall AWS fundamentals. Concepts like regions, availability zones, edge locations, pricing related topic. This will be a smaller video, and idea is that as I mentioned, we are building this AWS and AI builders community, and details are there in the description. You just need to provide basic details from you, and we will onboard you into the community. And obviously the advantages are manifold, as I mentioned in my last video as well, the introduction video, that you get to work with your peers. You are not alone in your quest to learn AWS or topics related to that, and you have something to lean on in case you are looking for any referrals or important topics refresh. Coming back to this video, we as I mentioned, this is a AWS Solutions Architect prep course, a crash course I would say, which the challenge is that we cover only those topics which are highly important from the solutions architect preparation point of view, and minimizing the effort, minimizing information, so that the information overdose is less and you focus only on the important topics. It also helps you have clarity of thought, right? When you have too many things going on in your head, it can get confusing. And as I was mentioning, the overwhelming part related to all these new technologies can be a mental block with respect to even attempting any such certification exam. Okay, so we want to first work on that mental block and get you started. Okay, so this is an attempt from me to get you at least started on learning AWS and what are the most important topics from the solutions architect certification point of view. Okay, so having said that, let me get started on that. So now, very basic question: why companies use AWS? It's a cloud ecosystem, as I mentioned. There are other cloud ecosystems like one from Google, one from Microsoft. AWS is in a league of its own, and I personally obviously have worked mostly on AWS only. I fully recommend AWS. And yes, so it's basically, you can think of it as how it used to be before and what is the difference now. Now in the sense 10-12 years. Traditional IT, when cloud ecosystem was a new concept, when it was not that relevant, you would buy servers of your own, you would maintain the hardware, you would just have these servers. You would need to install the OS like Ubuntu, Linux, MS, Office, etc., and then install applications in that, maintain the hardware upgrades, and so on and so forth. Okay, which was very time consuming, and it required a lot of involvement from your end with respect to just managing the servers. Okay, let alone implementing or developing apps on those servers. That is a different ball game altogether. Now with cloud, a lot of these things have become company managed, that is AWS managed in this case. You can have different provisioning modes. It could be on demand, it could be instant scaling, and even serverless concept. We'll come to that, where you just pay for whatever the code executes. You don't pay for the time the server was idle. Okay, so which has actually been a major disruptor in my point of view. The serverless concepts, the serverless concept which has come in, and all these are highly managed services, and they also provide you options where it could be hybrid, where a few things is managed by AWS and flexibility it is providing to the user to manage a few things which are easy and manageable to the user, to the customer. Okay, so that is also possible. Okay, so what is cloud computing? As you can see, you can look into the notes. It's basically not totally like purchasing the total servers. It's like renting out resources over the internet instead of totally owning data centers. Okay, because if I'm basically a startup, let's say, why would I want to purchase a data center? It doesn't make sense, right? So what I can do is I can maybe try to provision a EC2 instance for myself from AWS. Okay, like renting out existing computing resources, instead of unnecessarily investing in something which I will anyway not use that much. Okay, let's come to cloud service models for a bit. I think I already covered it a little bit. You have IaaS, PaaS and SaaS. Okay, so infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. I think most of you would be aware of that, but to get us started and to basically set up the context, it is important for me to go over some of the concepts here, because many of you may be not, or you may have learned it in the past in your colleges, and sometimes you just don't recollect those concepts. So whatever are the related concepts we are going to cover in this tutorial. Moving towards the IaaS. So look carefully at the diagram. So you will see with different steps, we have given in the brackets, either it is managed by the provider or by you as a customer. So what we do is in IaaS, the networking is with provider, storage is with the provider, servers, virtualization with the provider, and then OS is with you, middleware is with you, data application with you. So you have more to manage in IaaS. Okay, less from the AWS side of things. As you move towards PaaS, as you can see, till the middleware runtime, it is being managed by the provider or AWS. The data and applications are being managed by you. Okay, so it is providing you lesser flexibility to the user, more management from the AWS side. Okay, to make it basically to help the user in a way. Okay, it has its trade-offs. So many a times you may want IaaS, depending on the use case, for more flexibility, when you want even OS to be installed, managed by you. Okay, and then there is a SaaS, which I think most of you would be aware. It's from end to end managed by the provider. So there is just basically you just have to develop the application, the management of the application, and the different building blocks are all managed by the provider, that is AWS. Okay, that's how IaaS, PaaS and SaaS differ from each other. Okay, and examples could be Elastic Beanstalk is something which is PaaS, EC2 is IaaS, right? Because as I mentioned, in IaaS you get more to manage. EC2 is little bit a traditional concept. Even before serverless came in, EC2 are normal instances provision, where you can install your applications, run your applications, but obviously management of the applications, servers and the database rest with the user. Okay, so you have more work to do. in AWS, and you have the least work to do in SaaS, which is SaaS. Okay, moving towards AWS global infrastructure. Now AWS divides itself into regions. Each region can have multiple availability zones. Okay, and then there is something known as edge location. Okay, region is nothing but a geographic area. AZ is an independent data center cluster in that region. So a particular, let's say here in India you have Mumbai region. Okay, Mumbai region would have its own availability zones, ABC, which will have its own data centers and related infrastructure. Okay, edge location is basically, let's say you are a content delivery site, like a blog, or let's say a news website. Now to provide fast latency, hope you understand the word latency. Latency means the time it takes for the content to render at your end, and obviously idea is that you want the least amount of time which the website takes for you to deliver, for it to deliver content to you, right? So what happens in that case is you want to hit the nearest data center. Okay, so if somebody is a user in India, you want it to hit a data center in the Mumbai region. Okay, because the time for the network, or for the time it will take for the signal, okay, to go from the server to the UI or the browser where the user is trying to access the app, you want that to be the least. So ideally you would want the content coming in from the nearest region, nearest data center. That's the meaning of edge location. So you basically configure a system where depending on the region where the user is located, you try to deliver the content from the nearest location so that the latency is faster. That's the idea. Okay, and it could be from any availability zone in that region, right? And coming back to what is AWS region, as I mentioned already, it's a geographic area. You have one AWS Mumbai region, one in Singapore, and so on and so forth. So AWS has its different regions, and each region would have its different availability zones, which will be having their own data centers. Now why do you want to choose regions? Could be compliance, latency. Latency is the main. You want somebody in India to get the content delivered from the Mumbai region data centers, right? So obviously you don't want the call from Mumbai going to New York and then coming back to Mumbai. That would definitely involve higher latency, higher time. Okay, so cost reduces, latency reduces, disaster recovery is faster when you have region at a nearby, or data centers at a nearby location. Availability zones are separate data centers. They are connected with fast network. And why you do that is because for higher availability, now high availability is, even if there is a failure in one of the regions or in one of the zones, you can have content getting delivered from another availability zone. It shouldn't be the case that I am getting the data from AWS region, Mumbai region, and if there is a fault in Mumbai region, the call has to go to Singapore or New York. That shouldn't be the case. There has to be a workaround available, okay, or exigency plan. So for exigency, you have multiple AZs or multiple availability zones in each of these regions. Okay, so if one AZ fails, the traffic can be routed to the remaining working AZs and the users are not affected. Okay, so multi-AZ improves resilience, improves the availability, helps in failure isolation. So failure isolation is nothing but if there is a failure, you still are able to provide best service to the users, right? So you are able to even if there is a failure in one of the AZs, you are not affected. That's the idea. Edge locations, as I was already mentioned, so there is a service known as CloudFront, which helps you in delivering content from the nearby edge location. Okay, so edge locations also involve a concept known as caching, where what happens is you have these caching layers at these different edge locations, and the call doesn't need to go to the actual servers for it to get the response every time. If the backend is not changing, you can very well have caching in place, and caching being there nearby in that region from where the content is getting delivered with lesser latency, right? Examples are images, videos, static content, something which is not that dynamic, which doesn't involve you to go to a database every time. Okay, as I mentioned, blogging websites, news websites, websites which are delivering content which doesn't change much, and for which you don't have to go to the DB every time to get the data. Okay, so for such use cases, you try to use edge locations, content delivery networks. CloudFront is one such service for CDN, and you have these concepts like caching available in these services, so that the latency is on the lower side. And generally speaking, security point of view, AWS handles the hardware, networking, physical security, hypervisor. Customers handle IAM. We'll look at what is IAM in another video. Data encryption choices, application security. So overall, this is how it becomes a hybrid approach. Obviously, there are little permutations and combinations depending on the services, but yeah, overall it looks like this. And pricing basics, just to touch upon pricing, generally AWS charges you pay as you go model, compute by time, storage by GB, data transfer, requests or API calls. Okay, so EC2 would be per usage, S3 would be per GB, Lambda would be only the time for which the code was getting executed, you get charged. So few services are serverless, few are not. The non-serverless services would charge you even for the idle resource cost, because they are provisioning the entire instance to you. It's not like a shared concept internally at the AWS's end, so that is why they will charge you for the total resource, which happens with EC2. Lambda is a serverless service, so it will charge only for the code which is getting run on that service. And just to touch upon the design principles, when we are designing a system, we basically look into these 6 pillars for us to design in the best possible way. Whether the app would be secured, operationally whether it's feasible, how reliable would it be, what would be the performance efficiency, whether for different calls being made from front end to back end, how much time will the app take. So you have to optimize it based on performance. And it's not that you keep on provisioning instances left, right, center for you to get the performance. So with performance, you would also need to trade off on cost. So it's not that you just go for one parameter and then you have infinite costs and you can keep on using the expensive resources. So best designers, they always consider cost and its efficiency, okay, ultimately, because that makes a lot of difference, right? And how sustainable your app could be. So when you talk about the certification, AWS wants you to think something like for each and every concept, it wants you to think in a particular way. If it's, let's say, from this particular presentation, I would say, if it asks you related to high availability, it would want you to think about multi-AZ. If it is global low latency, so we are talking about users trying to render content from everywhere on the planet, so it would want you to think about CDN or CloudFront. We will look into each of these services little bit in detail in the other videos, but overall it looks like this, so that you get an idea. And if it is, let's say, question is asking about geographic deployment, then it basically is leading you towards region selection, right? And so on and so forth. So this is just to help you understand how AWS wants you to think. So taking one example on AWS, if let's say there's this simple architecture where users are coming into your application, and then you first try to deliver static content from the edge locations, okay, and obviously few calls would also go to the servers and to the database. So here users are connecting globally, that is the first thing. Cached content is reaching the server, static content which is cached is reaching the server in lesser latency, and the actual app is running in the region and database is in multi-AZ. So to avoid to have fault tolerance and high availability, you would have standby and replicas in different AZs, okay. So generally databases are set up in multi-AZ environment. App would be there in the region. Okay, so just a quick one-liners. Region, geographic area. AZ is for fault isolation. Edge is for speed, edge location. AWS is securing your cloud, and you secure your workloads, okay. So hope this particular video was informative. This was just a start. We touched upon basic AWS concepts. In the next video we'll start with one of the most important topics, which is IAM, okay. And if you understand IAM, I think you would have understood AWS, I would say 50%, okay. So if you understand IAM, you understand AWS 50%, okay. Remaining is just the remaining 50%, okay. So hope this video was informative, and intentionally I am trying to keep the content and the information minimized so that you are less confused, you focus only on important points, important concepts, and it doesn't become very overwhelming, okay. So that's the main idea when I have started this tutorial, that anything I am teaching, I would try to make it simplistic, and obviously understand one thing, that these are all very sophisticated concepts, okay. But when you are understanding the things, it shouldn't seem that hard, especially at the start. That becomes a barrier to entry then, right? So if I'm able to provide the learnings or knowledge in an easier way initially to start with, and then obviously, you know, when you do the coding, when you see the code, obviously you have the co-pilots available now. You know, there are a lot of different features available in each of these services. So we take it, so when we talk about it when we come towards that, right? So we don't worry about those things at the start itself. So let's understand the concepts first, and then we move towards more sophisticated nuances of AWS. Hope you're liking the series. Hope this was a good video. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.